All right, let me go ahead and set the tone for the video.
Then oddly, there are all these people who said they saw what looked like lasers or blue beams of light causing the fires in pictures and videos. Solar space generators collect the sun's energy and then beam it back to Earth. If they're beaming the sun's energy back to Earth, I'm sure they wouldn't ever miss a transmitter receiving station, right? Question mark, exclamation point, exclamation point. What would that look like anyway? A laser beam? Or light beam coming down to Earth? I guess. Could that cause a fire? That's her in her own words on the lasers.
So those are real words spoken by my real current representative, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who really was in office for multiple years. I say was because there are some new developments in that regard, and I've been waiting to speak on them. Before I do that, though, I also want to show her mounting a anti-trans sign in front of her office. Which, let's be clear, she put it in front of her office specifically because the person who had an office in front of her actually had a trans flag hanging outside her office. So she did this entirely to be a spiteful bitch. So we have a woman who is equally so stupid so as to think that Jewish space lasers lit California on fire, and also is so hateful that as soon as she sees a representation of being happy and healthy in your own body as the person that you see yourself as, responds by saying, "Nuh-uh, there's only two genders." This is somebody who completely lives by the idea that cruelty sells their persona. But if you want to support somebody that does not revel in that, and if you value honest, fair political analysis, and you want to make politics less miserable, then do me a favor, please subscribe to my channel and tell 3 friends what I'm doing over here. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Now, why am I talking about this at all right now? I've made a lot of videos over the years on Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she's done a lot of things besides the 2 things that I just noted here. But I wanted to go ahead and take the 2 things that meant the most to me. You see, as a person who runs a channel that routinely tries to debunk misinformation, trying to say that the Jews lit a state on fire is kind of right in my ballpark. And as somebody who has quite the large trans community and is dating a trans woman, I also tend to have some pretty strong opinions in that regard. So when I see that Marjorie Taylor Greene is resigning in January, on the one hand, I feel incredibly vindicated, super happy. After all, this is a hateful, spiteful bitch that would rather throw every single thing that my girlfriend is into a trash bin just to get a couple of political points or a couple more dollars. But let's be honest, she is a member of a party of people, and I live in a very red district, so that party of people is likely going to put up a new person into the Republican seat, and ultimately, her not being in that seat is actually more beneficial to the Republicans right now than it is to the Democrats. Let me explain. But first, we probably need some context for Marjorie so that this can all make some sense. So it may surprise some of you to know that she actually is technically college educated. Despite the fact that a lot of her takes are completely asinine and out of left field, she actually did receive a formal education. She studied business admin at the University of Georgia and graduated in '96. She then co-funded a CrossFit gym. So she had the money and had the wherewithal to actually get a business started out of whole cloth. In fact, her net worth before joining Congress was about $700,000. For context, the median net worth for Americans is about $200,000. Now, for those of you who might not know what those terms actually mean, a net worth is a measure of an individual's financial health, calculated by subtracting all of their total liabilities from their current total assets. So if you own a house that is worth $60,000, but if you own a car that happens to have a lot of payments on it still, then you have whatever those payments are worth in liability. Say you owe $20,000 a car, but you have a house completely, then your net worth may actually be $40,000 if the house and land is $60,000. Now, most people in my audience, and most people that I know and talk to on a regular day-to-day basis, can't fathom these fucking numbers, because most people do not have assets. Most people live in apartments, and the biggest asset they have is probably their car. So, just so you know, if somebody has $700,000 of net worth, then they are significantly financially healthy. They are in a position where they do not have to suffer, they do not have to struggle, and yet she is a member of a party of people who routinely make it harder for people who do have to financially struggle and suffer. In interviews, she has said that she became more politically active during the 2016 Republican primaries, mostly because she started riding the coattails of one Donald Trump. Moving to 2017 and 2019, she became really involved in being a political commentator on the web, writing for websites like AmericanTruthSeekers.com. During this time, she promoted a lot of far-right conspiracy theory content, like the Jewish space lasers, and of course, the ideas behind the fringe movement QAnon. Now, QAnon is something that I could do an entire secondary video on, but in short, the QAnon movement is a group of people that believe that there is a deep state, which we can all disagree on what the definition of that is, but they think that that deep state is operated by a global ring of child sex trafficking people who actually also cannibalistically start eating those children and sucking down their adrenochrome. It's the bog standard conspiracy theory, actually, if you think about it, because realistically, the idea that there's a shadow government behind our current government is not that far off. We have plenty of lobbying interests that actually do have a lot of control that we as people do not get a lot of access to and are not fully represented by any face or person. And yet they still have undue influence in the government. So yeah, we do have a shadow government of sorts. This part is true and pretty verifiable. And yes, there are a lot of people in power who are child predators. There might even be a cabal of them, all things considered, given that we have the Epstein files as a thing that's floating around. These are the half-truths that lead to the QAnon movement. Where they start going off the deep end is where they think that the people in these realms of political influence are trying to gain immortality by sucking down some delicious child blood. Which, again, there may or may not be a couple of people in power that truly believe that's a thing that's going to save them from ultimately dying, but that is not enough to base an entire conspiracy theory about a cabal of these people controlling the government. You can have a bunch of these disparate elements. QAnon tries to marry them all together, and this is, in fact, the political beliefs that Marjorie Taylor Greene had before walking into Congress. She began running for Congress in Georgia's 6th district, switching to the 14th district for some reason, but that reason was likely the fact that the incumbent here was not seeking re-election. Now, some of you may wonder how she actually won that election. Is Georgia just that red? And the answer may surprise you. You see, she ran against a man named Kevin Van Asdal. Now, I'm actually familiar with the Democratic Party in my district, as I've been involved with several of their meetings. I've not been able to attend lately due to various circumstances, but fact is, I have been there talking with the people who are involved in local Georgia politics. Van Asdal was running against Marjorie Taylor Greene on a backing of Democrats who really did not appreciate her hateful comments. So effectively running on a campaign of, I'm not Marjorie Taylor Greene, that makes me the better candidate. Apparently, his marriage started to fall apart around this time, and he had to move to Indiana, and as a result, ended up withdrawing from the race with Marjorie Taylor Greene, basically allowing her to win the district by default. Now, this may be anecdotal evidence, but I do remember Facebook posts from Greene around the time, basically calling him a coward for running away from her, but take that with a grain of salt because my memory is not always perfect there, and that is just things I remember seeing around the time. So this is a woman who does not come from money, but certainly was born into a business that earned so much money that she was able to invest $1.4 million of her own money into her congressional campaign. Ultimately, though, this allowed her to sell herself to Georgians as a hard-working business owner who is cut from the same cloth as the rest of them. But again, there's a difference between people like her and people who are working on blue-collar jobs. After all, the average truck driver and the average mechanic is not going to be able to invest $1.4 million into damn near anything. So she got to run completely unopposed in 2000 and then had to run 2 campaigns against Democratic candidates after that. Her next campaign was against Marcus Flowers, who's failed to run in the 14th district and also lost his run in the 13th district in 2024. Now, granted, I've met Marcus, and he seems like a very, very pleasant individual, but he definitely also comes across as a Democrat-coded Republican, almost as if he's somebody tailor-made to run in a red district, to sell the idea of the blue party to a bunch of red voters. Her next opponent would be Sean Harris, who ran for the Democrats and got about as many votes as Marcus Flowers did, at least by percentage points. The Marcus Flowers campaign apparently got about $15 million to run it, and while I don't remember the exact numbers that Sean Harris has raised, he raised a bunch during Marjorie's last campaign, and he's running against her again this year. Again, I've met Sean. He seems like a very pleasant individual. He's not exactly my cup of tea in terms of people that I want representing me in Congress, but I would much rather have him than Marjorie. I think it's just that I'm not really a big fan of people who talk like a politician, and if you've ever talked to Sean, he definitely talks like a politician with a lot of nothing flowery phrases. Just doesn't seem very down to earth to me, is my biggest problem. But he is the one running against Marjorie Taylor Greene as well, and he's been running mostly on a campaign of being the guy that got beat down in round 1, who's coming in swinging in round 2, and will most certainly win. But here's the problem. His campaign has been ran mostly on the idea that Marjorie Taylor Greene is crazy and needs to be taken down. And that's a super fair campaign to run, except for the fact that it's not worked multiple times, and it's not going to work again because Marjorie Taylor Greene is no longer going to be running in Georgia. There's going to be nobody in that seat, so the Democratic Party is going to be running against, as of right now, an unnamed Republican. Now, there are people who are planning on running in her place this coming year, and let's take a look at them.
Her district field manager, Jim Tully, who is also the chairman of the 14th District GOP, entered the race last night. He posted a video online announcing his intention to run. The GOP side also includes Marine vet Christian Hurd and businessman Jeff Criswell. You may remember him. He ran against Lucy McBath 2 years ago in Atlanta and lost. Sean Harris, a rancher and a Democrat who lost to Greene in 2024, is also in. So is Star Black, a Republican and retired FEMA official. She's been in the race since June and said she was upset to see Greene's resignation. She is among those who thinks it is time for a change here.
I really was looking forward to a primary with Marjorie. When I got the news, I honestly was very disappointed. Not that I couldn't run against her, but that she would quit in the middle of something that she was elected to do.
Now, why is Marjorie Taylor Greene quitting? Why is she leaving in the middle of her stint in Congress? What's going on there? Well, she got disillusioned with Donald Trump. The reason that she got involved in American politics in 2016 was to ride on his coattails, and most of her fame outside of her very, very inflammatory statements has been as a Donald Trump and MAGA loyalist. But now she is saying things like the American people aren't motivated by foreign wars or bailouts anymore. They want leaders who show up and do the job and fight for them every single day. Which is why she is no longer showing up, no longer doing the job, and no longer fighting every single day. You see, very shortly after she started criticizing Donald Trump for not releasing the Epstein files, which definitely totally implicate him, or at least a lot of people who support him, she faced immediate backlash from Donald Trump and, by extension, the MAGA movement. He said, "I am withdrawing my support and endorsement of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of the great state of Georgia. Over the past few weeks, despite my creating record achievements for our country, including a total and complete victory on the shutdown, closed borders, low taxes, no men in women's sports, or transgender for everyone," two things that what the fuck are you even talking about, my guy? "Ending DEI, stopping Biden's record-setting inflation, the biggest regulation cuts in history." Those are not good things, my guy. Actually, those are bad things. That's how we get things that hurt us in our food. "Ending a wars," something he can't actually name? What are the 8 wars that he's actually stopped, like that are actually not going on anymore? Rebuilding our military. Again, our military was already working. It's not broken. What the fuck are you talking about? I can't keep on reading the entire thing without like wanting to debunk everything he says. So we're going to skip a little further on. All I see is wacky Marjorie complain. It seemed to all begin when I sent her a poll stating that she should not run for senator or governor. She was at 12% and didn't have a chance unless, of course, she had my endorsement, which she wasn't about to get. She has told many people that she is upset that I don't return her phone calls anymore. But with 219 congressmen and women and a bunch of other people in Congress and an otherwise normal life to lead, I can't take a ranting lunatic's call every day. I understand that wonderful conservative people are thinking about primarying Marjorie Taylor Greene, and that they are fed up with her antics, and if the right person runs, they will have my complete and unyielding support. She has gone far left, even doing The View with their low IQ Republican-hating anchors. Thank you for your attention on this matter. Make America great again. So, let me get this straight. You can run against the left for years and not have any threat to yourself whatsoever, Marjorie, but the absolute nanosecond that Daddy Trump turns on you, it's time to get out of Congress. So, now we gotta figure out why that is. Well, one reason could be the fact that it's just not safe to be the person who the Republican Party or MAGA as a whole hate. In fact, a study from 2024 showed that MAGA Republicans are far more likely than other groups to endorse political violence towards damn near anybody, but they are not necessarily willing to take up those arms themselves. These are the people who are very willing to go on social media and engage in what's called stochastic terrorism, where many people will call for the deaths of a person and then a supposed lone wolf will eventually go out and do the deed. I'll have that study linked in the description below, but it means being in the crosshairs of MAGA as a monolith is not exactly good for your health, because while the individuals of the MAGA movement may be unlikely to harm you, their words can end up causing harm when somebody who is particularly sociopathic reads those and says, "You're right, it's my time to do my duty." Back to the timeline. In mid-2023, she was expelled from the conservative House Freedom Caucus after insulting a fellow member of said caucus. Go to 2024, and suddenly she is promoting Russian propaganda and harshly criticizing the United States for supporting Ukraine. Apparently, being the country of freedom means loving countries that are very anti-freedom. And that brings us to where I mentioned before. We are now at 2025, where Donald Trump is labeling her as a traitor for her saying that pedophilia is bad, actually. She has stated that she has a disillusionment with the political system, and the internal conflicts within her own party have caused her to have a desire to not put her district through a painful primary. So instead of having a primary where she runs against another person, she is stepping down so that the Republican primary can be a clean slate. And then, of course, whoever wins in the Republican primary will likely be going up against Sean Harris, because there really isn't anybody else in this district who is running against her right now for the Democratic primary. At least nobody of note that I have seen quite yet. So she's going to be losing her institutional influence, and she's definitely going to have a deep stain on her political career. It seemed for a while that she may be trying to run for some greater office in Georgia, but that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. So what's she likely going to be doing now? Well, if you look at her history, if you look at her net worth, she has gone from being worth $700,000 at the beginning of her time in politics to being worth over $25 million. She still has her stake in her family's company, so she's still going to be making plenty of money. But I think where it all comes down for her is fame. After all, she got involved in politics specifically as a commenter and an online persona, and I think that's what she's going to be doing afterwards. She's likely going to be folding her personality back into that, because while her inflammatory rhetoric does not do well in Congress, it does not do well for making allies within a political sphere of people who are in suits and ties, it does do wonders when you've got a bunch of neckbeards who don't know what the touch of a woman feels like. Those people are very likely to grab onto your inflammatory rhetoric and start running with it full hog. She has been rapidly losing the support of people in Congress, and she's definitely lost a lot of the support from people in her own district. Though, if you talk to people in her own district, many of them don't even know who the hell she is. I'm dead serious. I've spoken with people who did not know that she was our representative. That is how disenfranchised from politics many of the people are here in District 14. She has enriched herself as much as she can with her current grift, and she is going to be moving on to a new one. Now, beforehand, she tried saying that she was going to start toning down her inflammatory rhetoric and started apologizing for how she came across in politics, how basically mean she was. But she would never really get into specifics about the kinds of things she was apologizing for, and definitely never about the kinds of people that she has hurt in her political career. This is a sociopathic woman who will do anything to enrich herself and make it so that more people know her name. The fact that people are talking about her is and has always been the plan. Why do you think that she was so sycophantic over Donald Trump in the first place? He's a media personality who operates the exact same way. She saw in him the same kind of greed, want for sycophancy, and narcissism that she herself has, even if it's in microcosm by comparison. It is very likely that during her time in office, she has connected herself with many online influencers, due to the interviews we've seen her do with them, due to being a speaker at AFPAC, Nick Fuentes' Nazi event. We've seen her make these connections over the years and disavow them for political expediency, because lying is something that she does when she fucking breathes. It's likely she's going to take all of that influence, all of those connections, all of the networking she's been able to do in here, getting connected with representatives, getting disillusioned with that, to build a story about the systems we have in America being systems that fail us, and that there needs to be a different solution for our current political problems. She's going to end up being a populist speaker. She has not said this specifically, not that I've seen, but this is exactly the bent that I would assume she would be going. She's going to lean into far-right populism and become an older, more seasoned, more female Nick Fuentes. After all, it's the audience she started serving in the very beginning, and there's a reason that's the political commentator who she was willing to headline at his own event. She knows the audience of borderline neo-Nazis that are there supporting Nick Fuentes. She knows the online neckbeard edgelords. She wants to cater to them. It's a group of people that's very easy to rally. All you have to do is explain to them that the system around them failed them, and instead of doing the hard thing of participating in and trying to reform that system, she is going to sell them the idea that you can usurp that system. But not usurp that system in any healthy way. You can usurp that system by being an anti-Semite, by being a transphobe, by being a generally hateful and spiteful person on the internet and causing chaos. Because that's what she did before she got elected. That's what Nick Fuentes does now. And mark my words, that's exactly what she will be doing in the future. But let me know if you think that I'm off base here, because I very well might be, but this is what I think is going to be happening in the next couple years for her. There's going to be a month or two of downtime, if not more, and then there's going to be a big announcement that she's starting a new podcast, a new YouTube show, something that is going to continue to enrich her and raise her repertoire in right-wing political spaces. But again, if you think that I'm off base, let me know in the comments section below. Again, if you value honest and fair political analysis and you want to make politics less miserable to listen to and participate in, then do me a favor and subscribe. And if you're doing that, please tell 3 friends what I'm doing over here. I would greatly appreciate it, and it would mean the world to me. That said, if you didn't know, I have a Patreon as well, which is the primary way my channel is funded. If you want to support what I do over here, then please check that out. But with all that said, thank you very much for watching, and insert end of video tagline here. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitt, you know I'm not saying that last part, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.